Handle a big boy room? Can you handle the word no? Being better and doing better and staying better is hard. And tonight I'm going to come quick, but I'm going to come real direct. And possibly no one has ever taught you. I'm grateful for what God has done in my life. God has elevated me in business. God has elevated me in ministry. God has elevated me in every area of my life because I had people above me that were elevated. I had people that were above me to this day and hopefully for the rest of my life that aren't afraid to tell me the truth, even though the truth will offend me. And all those different things. And so many of us have to understand we have to be relatable in regards to, Lord, I thank you for another day above ground and out of prison. Lord, I hope that you cut right into each and every one of us and you stitch us back up before we leave. Lord, that we are going to be taught tonight your word that teaches us how to be a man and a woman, how to evolve in greatness, how to stay in greatness and become better in the greatness. But Lord, we have to mature. We cannot be offended, little boys and girls. We have to understand how big things operate. People don't have time for nonsense. We have to get to the point, stay at the point, and evolve from the point. Lord, we have to target what we need and evolve in the needs that we have. Lord, have your way. Think through my mind and speak through my vocal cords. In your name we pray, amen. Let's give God a hand. So I'm going to come quick. It says now, Paul is teaching us how to be relatable. Paul is teaching us how to be free. Paul is teaching us how to do all these different things. And I'm going to preface it by this. I said it earlier. I was everything you wanted me to be because I had no identity. I was a people pleaser versus a God pleaser. But now that I'm a God pleaser, I got to be relatable. I got to be relatable on all levels. You hear the things that makes relatable. Brendan and I were just down at Teen Challenge last week. We did 48 hours of ministry with the women. It was absolutely incredible. God moved in mighty ways. I asked Brendan to give his testimony. Brendan wanted to start with his strengths. I said, start with your weaknesses. I said, talk about your dad, the drug addict that died, and how he died, and what it felt to not be a father. He earned credibility with them. You got to learn how to lead with your weaknesses. And Paul is teaching us now how to be relatable, and it's important to understand what he says here in verse 19. Though I am free and I belong to. I don't have to do this. I don't have to study for you. I don't have to preach to you. I don't have to do any of this. I'm free to do whatever I want, and it goes on, I belong to no one. At the end of the day, I don't have to, I get to. You don't have to be here. You know, you could leave the sober house you're in or the program you're in. A lot of you aren't in the programs. You're just here to get a word. But you don't have to be here. You get to be here. You make a choice to be here. And at the end of the day, if anybody is willing to mentor you, they don't have to mentor you. They don't have to sow into you. They really don't want to correct you because they know you're going to take your ball and go home and get upset. And then one minute you're blessing them, the next minute you're cursing them. You have to understand that if God affords you to have somebody show you how to get to where you want to go, they don't have to do it. So you should treat that person with kindness. Your boss doesn't have to hire you. Even though you're so good, you're the best person in the marketplace, but you might not show up to work tomorrow. See, this is going to be a hard message and a hard truth. None of us have to do what we want to do. We get to do it. I've made myself a slave to everyone. I'm a slave to everyone in this room. And at the end of the day, I was a slave to cocaine. So I knew how to be a slave. I just was a slave to the wrong things. I was a slave to evil. Now I'm a slave to righteousness. And Paul is teaching us now how this works to win as many as possible. At the end of the day, as Scott Larson, a testimony 12 years later, in Jesus we won his soul. You're not going to win everybody. Every day I wake up, I'm in a no-win situation in business and ministry with people, even with my children sometimes. But every day I go to bed and I won because I always win if I don't quit. And at the end of the day, Paul is teaching us how to be relatable now. And he's saying, you're going to win some you're not going to win. To the Jews, I became like a Jew, Paul says. Paul is not saying that I am going to do this. I need to understand their culture. I need to understand how they think. I'm here to accommodate you. I'm not here to be like you. I'm here to accommodate you. And this is what Paul is teaching. I don't expect you to change, but I'm here to bring Jesus Christ into your culture. And eventually, if Jesus Christ changes you, Jesus Christ is going to change your culture. Paul's not here to say I'm a know-it-all. Paul's not saying any of those things. I became all things to all people that I may win some. And that's what Paul is teaching us. To those under the law, Old Testament, rules and regulations and different things of that nature. Paul's got Jesus. Paul used to kill Christians. Those under the law, religious folk, I know how to be religious, but I'm into the relationship. So I can accommodate some of your traditions, but I'm here to tell you the importance of a relationship. And that's where you'll see Christians say, I'm a New Testament Christian. No, the Bible's the Bible. The Old Testament and the New Testament, it's all truth. You can't take, like Scott Larson said, or like Matt said, this isn't a la carte recovery. You take what you want to take and leave the rest. That ain't how this works. The only way you're going to get free is to take the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And that's what Paul is teaching us. To those not having the law, he says, though I am not free from God's law, but I am under Christ's law, so that to win those not having a law. You have to be relatable on all levels. Now, I know I can relate back in the day to be homeless, but I'm not homeless no more, but I still got to relate to those who are homeless. I'm not high anymore, but I got to be able to relate to those who are high. Now, in business, I need to relate to the people that sweep the floors and the people that borrow us millions of dollars. I've got to be relatable at all levels, and the devil trained me so God could use me. And this is what Paul is teaching. To the weak, I became weak. I've worked the steps, and I've gotten power from the steps, but I can identify what it's like to be weak. I can identify what it's like to be powerless and unmanageable. I can identify with those who are high right now, because I've been in your shoes. I can identify those who own businesses, because I have owned businesses, and I'll tell you the truth on that. If you were that great of a business owner, you would still own the business. So I had to learn how to be an effective business owner and not lose the business, and that's what I walk in today. But I understand what it's like to be weak, and I understand what Paul says, when you're weak, you're strong. So you lead with your weaknesses. What we stand on today, when I sat in a job interview, now I'm not suggesting you to do this, but I told the guy that hired me, he said, your resume is way too qualified for this position. I said, I don't care about a position, I care about freedom. And he said, I told him I'm an ex-cocaine addict. He says, you're hired, and I'll help you buy the first house. If you learn how to be weak and vulnerable, God's going to bring people into your life. But if you're trying to be all that in a bag of chips, which you're really not, you're going to fail miserably and end up where the places you said you would never return. And Paul is saying, I become all things to all people that I may save some. You're not going to save everybody. Quite frankly, you can't save anybody. You're just a vessel that God will use to show people, as Zach did, as Matt did, and as Scott did for us tonight, that recovery is possible with God. And you're not going to save everybody, so don't get disheartened, and Paul is teaching us that. He says in verse 23, now I do this for the sake of the gospel. I do this for the sake of Jesus. I do this. I'm standing here and far from perfect, standing on behalf of Jesus. I do this for the gospel's sake, because that I may share the gospel. And basically, if I share the gospel, I'm going to share in the blessings of the gospel. And you cannot keep what you have unless you give it away. So I stand up here for 15 years counting to share the blessings of the gospel. But me sharing the gospel allows me to share the blessings of the gospel. You can't expect the blessings of the gospel unless you share the gospel. So that's difficult for a guy like me, because I didn't know the gospel, but now I know the gospel, so I'm called to share the gospel. And if I would have never knew the gospel, I would have never been set free by the gospel, because the gospel is God. How can you expect to know God when you don't know the Word of God? You don't know God if you don't know God's Word. You can sense Him, you can believe in Him, but you got to get to know His Word, and that's what Paul is saying. And he's saying, do you not know that the race all runners run? Everyone you meet on this planet is either running from or to something. Yep. They're running from a mistake, or they're running to significance. They're running from their feelings, or they're running into transparency. Everyone you meet, it don't matter corporately, professionally, ministry, AA, NA, CMA, GA, SA, everyone is running. But where are you running to? Or what are you running from? And that's what Paul is teaching us now. Run in such a way. That really stuck me in my track. It's not so much the run, it's how you run. How do you run? And who are you following? Are you following people that are running away from themselves, or following people that are running back into themselves? That's hard, because each and every one of us have ran from ourselves our whole life, because we didn't like ourselves. And Paul is saying, run in such a way to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. You can't lollygag through this. This is strict training. This is discipline. Paul is teaching us that his discipline has birthed his freedom. I have been disciplined, and I'm growing in discipline, and I've never been so free. I've never been so free because I learned discipline. And Paul is saying this is strict training. This isn't for boys and girls. This is for men and women. If you want this, you're going to have to mature and grow up. And now he goes on to say this, for a crown that won't, not for a crown that won't last, for a crown that lasts forever. My legacy is not going to be the money I made or the cars I drove or the businesses I owned or the real estate that I have. My legacy is how many people are in heaven because of God using me as a vessel. That's your legacy. How many Zoes can come into this building and get set free after their dads get set free? That's a legacy. So quit chasing something that doesn't have any spiritual meaning and chase the things that have eternal meaning. This Paul is teaching us how to have eternal impact. And if you have eternal impact, you're going to impact this country. You're going to impact this city, and you're going to have a nice car. But I just shared this with somebody I love dearly today that I was with. I said, I stepped out of my truck that I normally don't drive for good reasons. And I looked at it today, and I'm like, I drive a truck. I used to drive the bus. I used to walk the streets, and I don't care. I'm not talking about the truck. I'm talking about what God has done in my life. I don't care about how many roofs we have and own. I'm just grateful I got one roof over my head. And if you appreciate the one roof that Jim and Liz have provided to you, God will give you your own roof. I'm going to get to that here in a minute. Check this out. Thank you for the 2 hand claps. But if you're going to go into strict training, verse 26 says this, you can't run aimlessly. You can't just do whatever you feel like doing. You can't run aimlessly. The path is set before you. It isn't your path. It isn't my path. It's his path. It's not your way or my way. It's the way. There's only one way to do this. It's the way. And if you choose to do it your way, you're going to get what you had and what you ran from, and it'll be worse. You pick up where you left off and worse. Now, I tried to say, no, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. It's right. When I go out and get high again, what am I now? It's going to be a social drinker? That never happens. And that's what Paul is saying. And do not fight like a boxer beating the air. Every step has to have purpose. Every punch has got to count. When you're walking on God's path, you got to maximize your moments. Life isn't an experiment where you're just going to try this and try that. It ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. And now he's saying, I strike a blow to my body. You got to take some blows. This isn't easy. This isn't meant for boys and girls. When you're corrected, that's a blow. When you got to go show up at your meeting when you're tired, that's a blow. When you preach consecutively for 15 years, no matter how you feel, if you're sick or you're healthy, your voice works or it doesn't. You got people hating you or people loving you. No matter what, you got to show up. And I've been taking blows for 15 years. For 15 years, I've been taking blows, and this is a kicker here. So that after I had preached to others, I myself. Do you understand that you're the only one that can take you out? Yep. Not Jimmy or Tracy or the judge or that PO that I paid no money for, my public defender.
Come on.
The devil can't even take you out.
It's true.
Because you got to give the devil permission to take you out. The only power the devil's got is the power you give him. I'm not saying he can't. He's not around. He's here in this room right now. He got influence, but you got to agree with his foolishness. So I myself, Paul is saying this, that not to be disqualified. See, I preach this message on Sunday, and I got texts and emails of people disqualifying themselves because they're offended. See, I wouldn't even go so far to tell you it disqualifies you. I just says it delays you. Can we trust your emotions? Do you understand that I sell a product and a service in the business I own? They don't buy the service, they buy me. And when they buy me, they buy my emotions. When they buy me, they buy my anger and my stability and my consistency. Yes, I may, for those who work with me, be the best painter. I've never painted anything in my life. I'm in the people business. I mean, you can claim to be the best painter on the planet, but what about your emotions? Because when I buy you to paint, I buy your emotions of the painter. I buy your history, I buy your strongholds, I pay you for all that, not just the painting. So what do people get when they get you? And now God is saying this, the key factors of becoming better. They're key factors. Matthew 23, being a humble servant. You always start at the bottom. You serve your way to the top. God doesn't care about the gifts and talents. He wants to know if you're going to still be here next week. That's all he cares about. That's all we care about. I put people on this stage that are less talented than people in this audience because the people on this stage I know will be here next week. I don't put people in management positions that are emotional, that get easily offended, that bring me problems versus solutions, that tell me no. I got to be able to trust your no. I got to know that you've exhausted all efforts before you tell me no as a business owner. Don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution. And God is saying this, I don't care about all that. I just want you to serve. You will serve your way to the top. How I got to where I am professionally, I used to drive a guy around in his Mercedes. Eventually he got a Benz. I washed his car. I cleaned his rims just like I used to do for the dope dealer. I carried out his trash. I did his laundry. I got to know him so much. See, if you're ever going to do better, you got to study the environments and how people act that are doing well. It's not so much what they can teach you, it's what they can teach you by watching them. Watch how they roll. Watch how they think. Watch how they respond versus react. And God is saying this message isn't for little boys or girls. God is saying, I got scholars and theologians, authors that walk into this church every Sunday and they want the pulpit. And here's the test I give them all. They see what God is doing here and they want to get a microphone that they didn't pay for. A microphone that they didn't pay the price for 15 years to hold. Let me talk about the microphone. If I ever give you the microphone and you hold on to the microphone too long, you're never getting the microphone back. When I ask you to pray and you want to preach a sermon, you'll never pray again in this house. This is how big boys roll. And I'm not even saying I'm one of them. I follow big boys. This is how they do. When you get a job, you don't tell somebody the next script in the same script says, those who exalt themselves will be humbled. Don't lead with how great you are. If you were that great, we would have heard about you. Humble yourself. Serve your way. If somebody wants to be around you, the thing that you should tell them, how can I serve you? How can I serve you? That's how I operate. I go down to Bishop Jake's. He said with me on a private dinner with tears in his eyes, you've been coming here for 6 years. You've never asked me for nothing. For nothing. You so financially into me? I said, why would I have to ask you for anything? I listen to you every day, almost of the week at the gym. He says, your motives are pure. I don't meet people like you. And I think he was telling me that in front of kings and CEOs and bishops that are at the dinner table with us so they would learn how to operate like this. They're just there to get a picture with somebody famous. I'm here to get the knowledge of the anointed man in front of me. So when you go for a job, especially with our history, don't tell everybody how great you are. I mean, every person, I don't interview anymore. I used to. Every person that told me how great they were didn't turn out to be that great. Because they weren't walking in humility. And you got to say, if I'm going to be great, I got to be a servant. That's how Matt came to oversee the missions and outreach. He started making sandwiches. Getting back to the theologians and authors, when I tell them, hey, we got a place for you here, 5 o'clock on Monday nights. Show up and make sandwiches for the homeless. Not one of them came. They were here for ulterior motives. People at high levels can smell fraud. And here's the thing, some of us don't even know we're fraudulent. And what God is saying, those who exalt themselves, all we care about here and all God cares about is your heart. Not your talents and your gifts. They'll be short-lived if you ain't got the right heart. And that's what God is teaching us here. So those who humble themselves will be exalted. Colossians 3, being full of godly virtues, which takes time for people like us. If you know you're chosen by God, that should humble you, not burst your ego. Amen. It should humble you, dearly loved. You can't love unless you know you're dearly loved. I can't give you something that I don't have. I got love. That's all I got. And it's saying, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. I mean, no one wants to be around somebody who ain't got those virtues. I don't want to be around a raving lunatic that flies off the handle at a moment's notice, that I can't trust their emotions. I can't go to war with you if you're going to tap out when the times get tough. This stuff takes time, and God is saying this now, bear with each other. How is it you can't bear with anybody, but you expect everybody to bear with you? Settle each other's grievances. I have no grievances with anybody. I can't afford grievances. I'm sure people have grievances with me, but your grievance with me ain't going to weigh me down. It ain't going to happen. And that's what God is saying in his word, where it says, perfect unity, forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. You can't experience forgiveness unless you forgive. Forgiveness isn't an event, it's a process. It takes time to forgive some of the stuff that's been done to you. But I can't expect you to forgive me if I don't forgive you. And God is saying that right now. Let peace rule your hearts. Since members of one body, you were called to peace. Be thankful. Ephesians 4, check this out. I'm going to tell you something here. All the positions that God has given me. I'm not addicted to the positions. I'm a servant. That's all I am. I don't care what it says on my business card. I don't care about titles. I care about impact and people that are lost being found. That's all I care about. And Paul is teaching us this now. Let me give you a hint for some of you that are interviewing right now. Do not let unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. Don't go to your interview and complain about your previous employer. Don't tell the person you're trying to get a job with, oh, they treated me unfairly, they underpaid me. Because at the end of the day, who you're trying to be employed with is going to be your previous employer in 2 months when you start complaining about them. I don't interview people anymore. We got over 300 employees now. I don't interview, but when I used to interview, if you complained about your previous, I said the interview is over, you are not hired. People that come to this church and complain about their previous churches, they never last. They got a victim mentality. Because at one point, whatever that church was, you believed in it. And don't put your pastor on a pedestal. They're a person just like you, and they can react and respond in a bad mood just like you. So don't hold them to a standard you can't walk in. So I don't hire people. I made the mistake even in ministry for wounded Christians that come. Or, people come in these rooms all the time and say, well, AA doesn't work. Well, AA doesn't work because you didn't work it. Don't tell me that AA... So when you have a bad experience, just say, it's not for me. Don't say, BSM, Nate, he's just a dictator. He thinks he's all that in a bag of chips when you get kicked out and go to the next place. Because, if those people, if they would actually let you into their program, all they care about is money. I would not let a person into our program that complained about another program. Because I'll be that program in a matter of days. Don't let unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, only what is helpful for building others up according. Are you helpful or hurt you? Are you a victim or do you have victory? These are how the big rooms act. You got to understand, you got to handle the word no. You're not ready yet. Go back to the drawing board. Can I do this, Pastor? Can I do that? No, you can't. You're not as good as you think you are. You need more time, you need more space, and you need more growth. I'm not going to set you up for failure. And God will never bring you anything significant until you're ready. You can go get it because you're that talented, because you are that talented. But why would you go get something that ain't going to last? Why wouldn't you wait for something that will last forever? This is what God is teaching us, that it may benefit those who listen. It says in Colossians 4, be respectful of our differences. Don't be judging people. Christian or sober or addicted. Don't be judging people. Let your conversation... What do people hear when you talk? What do people hear when you talk? I never hire or bring somebody close to me that is drama. I don't bring anyone close to me that's got emotional insecurity. I can't afford it. I got 1,000+ people that I minister on a weekly basis, and I got enough of that in the crowd. Yeah. And no disrespect, because I used to be one of those people. But I didn't want to be one of those people anymore. And this is what God is teaching us to become better. He's saying that you know how to answer to everyone. The Bible says that the Holy Spirit will tell you what to say. Yeah. So I don't leave business meetings anymore saying I should have said this or should have said that. Oh my God, I said what I was supposed to say. I don't leave the pulpit anymore. Oh, I left that out. The Spirit told me what to say, and I said whatever needed to be said. And if I didn't say what I thought, maybe it's not meant to be said. And that's really what God is teaching us here now in James 1:9. This is a big one. Be emotionally secure. People have to be able to trust your emotions. It doesn't matter how good you are. What matters is how secure you are. What matters is how stable you are. I have made grave mistakes in 15 years of business and everything else, bringing in people that were good at what they did but had no emotional security. They played the victim role and they did all those things. It takes time to be emotionally secure. Now God is saying this, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. People that want to grow are taking notes during sessions like this. I print the pieces of paper for you to write on. And what God is saying is, so everyone should be quick to listen. This is what God is teaching us. Slow to speak. Be slow to speak and quick to listen. If you're slow to speak and quick to listen, you're going to be slow to become angry. I can't have somebody around me, or nor can any CEO or high-level person, that we don't know if you're going to show up or not. I've got a nonprofit. We've got a nonprofit where we provide at $90 to $120 an hour. We pay for the therapy. I got people that won't even show up for free therapy. You make your body a slave. You're all things to all people. If you ever want to evolve in your life, you have to understand these principles. When you get invited to a meeting that you wonder why you're there, keep your mouth shut. Don't try to prove yourself. Don't try to understand why they have you there to study their environment, to study how they operate, to study how they think. You don't have to prove yourself for whatever reason you got invited to that meeting, for whatever reason you got invited to that room. Don't go in there all hot. Keep your mouth shut. You got two ears and one mouth, and listen to what they say. I have low-level managers in my companies that take all the meeting time telling the high-level managers how to run the company, and those low-level managers are never invited to the room. Do you understand that you can talk yourself out of a promotion? Do you understand that these rooms that you're called to be in with significant players on this planet, spiritually, professionally, if you don't know how to operate in these rooms, you're not going to get invited back to these rooms. And at the end of the day, this is a hard message and it's really quiet in here, but I'm just telling you the truth. I've been dismissed from rooms. You know the story. First time I preached for Bishop Earl at Free Indeed, he shut me down. He told me to go sit down. He told me my message was too long. I wanted to cry and punch him in the face and quit. Could you handle it if I ripped the microphone out of your hand during your testimony? What would you do? Could you handle it if I ask you to pray and you pray too long and no one cares about what you were saying because they lost interest after 30 seconds? Could you handle those truths within those realms to get higher realms of God? So where are you at with this today? It says in Hebrews 13:7, are you having a hard time following the leaders? Can you not follow them because you're envious and jealous of them? You have to glean from them. If you want what they have, you got to do what they do. Matt didn't get invited, and I'm being just very candid with you. I'm not speaking out of arrogance. I'm speaking out of humility. I'm teaching you how this works. We had to see him consistently making sandwiches for over a year until we invited him to do more for the church. Because I'm not going to put anybody in position that's not going to be here in 2 weeks. It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. And here's the problem with the kingdom, and here's the problem with the market right now with low unemployment. People will hire anybody for any reason just to get somebody with a pulse. That's not how the kingdom works. The kingdom, even churches, I had somebody call me for a reference. I had somebody get so offended. One of the things, I watch Shark Tank. I don't even watch that much, but what caught me eye about it, I was watching it Sunday after church. The guy, whatever, Mr. Wonderful, I think they call him. I don't even know who he is, but he says, I'm going to invoice you for my time. You just wasted my time. Let me give you another trinket here. Don't ever waste a busy person's time. Don't try to have a 5-minute conversation when they're trying to hug 300 people. Because what that person will do, it won't be me because I love you, I'll also come back to you. But anybody else, they will avoid you going forward because you just wasted their time. There is a time and a place for certain conversations. The people that have the most demand the least. The people that expect everything have nothing. This is big boy stuff here I'm telling you about. And at the end of the day, those who are supposed to hear this won't hear it, and they'll bog down Pastor Scott after the meeting when Pastor Scott's got to talk to 15 people in the next 5 minutes, and you'll want all of his 5 minutes because you're so important. You got to go to God on these things as well. But it says, remember, this is a hard message. Say, this is hard. But if you're ever going to go to the next level, you got to operate like this. If you want to stay where you are, get offended, quit, and say, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm not just coming to you because I don't follow significant leaders in this world. I'm not coming to you as a broke person. I'm not coming to you as someone that doesn't own a business. I say this with all humility. I'm coming to you with experience. I have talked my way out of promotions. I have been asked to leave meetings trying to be a know-it-all, to exalt myself. And I'm here to tell you, it says, remember your leaders who spoke the word of God to you. Take into account what Paul taught us earlier. They don't have to speak the word of God to you. They don't have to. Your sponsor doesn't need to sponsor you. They choose to. Because they know without doing that, they will be in a world, but they do it because they love you. And check out what it says. Consider the outcome of your life. Don't follow somebody that ain't going anywhere. Don't follow your roommate out of BSM or Serenity that's going to go back to homelessness. Follow the men and women in this room that have maintained and evolved, that have scars, that are still in the game, that aren't afraid to hear the word no, that aren't afraid. I had two of the girls. Stand up for a second. You two. They've been trying to meet with me for 9 months. Let's give them a hand. I feel like I'm being all grandiose talking about me. I'm just sharing how this works. I'm a knucklehead and I'm capable of mass destruction. But they came to me with a proposition and a vision, and I said, not now. I was waiting to see how they reacted to not now. I wanted to see if they were going to take their ball and win home. Because if they got offended by not now, they can't be trusted with the vision that God gave them. That's the honest to God truth. They were crying, and I started crying. And I said, God will bring it to pass. But the $1 million question is, will you still be here to see it? I've watched blessings fall on people that were meant for people that left, that fell onto somebody that just came. That brother was sitting in the bedroom at SV3, and the glory of God blessed him. He goes, where did that come from? It came from the last guy who slept in your bed that left prematurely and getting high. He prayed for a blessing. He left, and the blessing he prayed for fell right on that brother. So whoever you're following, consider the outcome of their lives. Imitate their faith. Follow them, follow Jesus. Don't follow travel agents that tell you that this is a good life, that don't live a good life. I mean, no disrespect to travel agents, but when I call you to book a trip, I want to know if you actually walked on that beach. Don't tell me that sand is white and then when my plane lands and it's gray and hard because you just told me about a beach that you've never been to. Don't tell me that bed is pillow top with fluffy feather bed pillows when you've never slept on that bed. I want to know that you've slept on that bed, that you can attest to sleeping on that bed, that water is clear and warm, and you can actually chill on that beach. Don't send me to a place that you haven't been. No one can take you to a place that they haven't gone to. So whoever you're following, consider the outcome of their life, not just material stuff. Consider their peace. Consider their patience. Consider their love. Consider their generosity. Consider those things God is teaching us. Now it says in 2 Kings, this is real biblical truth. Are you in it for the long haul? Elijah and Elisha. He says, stay here. He tells the guy who is his mentee. He's under him. He's following his mentor. His mentor tells him to stay here. This is what he tells his mentor. As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. Do you understand that you need to be attached to a person? Who is your destiny tied to? He knows what his destiny's tied to. He knows what his destiny's tied to. And this is what God is teaching you. I don't care about what you can do. I care about, can I trust your heart? So when the times get tough and all hell is breaking loose, and I tell hell no. It doesn't matter how you feel or what was done to you or what was said or what wasn't said. Are you in it or not? You can say you're in it and your words will be tested. We'll see if you're in it. We'll see if you're in it. And this is what's happening. Where at the end of the day, this brother's saying, hey man, and you know what this brother did? He served under him his whole life. And when that brother went to heaven, that brother got a double portion blessing. That everything that his mentor had was bestowed upon him twice as much. That's how God works. That's how the big boys work. That's how the big girls work. And this is how God works. And now he says this, Psalm 84. Do you want to be part of it or play a certain part? You'll only do what you want to do. Well, I'll serve if I can carry the bread only.
Come on now.
I'll serve if it only lasts an hour. But beyond an hour, I will not serve. I think some of the stuff I'll leave it alone because that's way, well, I'll leave it alone. Or maybe I won't leave it alone. I was the type of guy, I'll just put myself on Front Street to maybe have you evaluate yourself. I was the type of guy, if I had a guy like me in their life that was giving away money on Sunday nights in gift cards and then I match it 4 times as much and give a person a $50 bill, I was the type of guy that would wait until the gift card was given so I could get the cash. Are you that type of guy? Don't ever try to manipulate God. You will be the brokest person on the planet. When you do those things, now check out, this is what it's saying. Will you just do what you want to do or will you do whatever you're asked to do? A single day in his courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. So let's just say, I'd rather be a gatekeeper in the house of the Lord. I don't care what I do, I just want to do something. And I give the testimony of one of my spiritual sons, Mike Livingston. I trust his heart. We're connected at the heart. And then I said, become the best floor sweeper there is.
That's right.
And when God sees you sweeping that floor like nobody's business, he's going to give you your dream job. But until you can sweep that floor like nobody's business, you can go get a better job, but you will never stay in the better job. Because wherever you go, there you are. And now God is teaching. So then I thought to myself as I was studying, I thought to myself this, okay, you're here right now, but your mind is 1,000 other places. I know what that's like. It's terrible. I knew what it was like when my kids were babies and I was sitting on the floor playing with them, but I was mentally on the streets getting high. So I went and got high, and I wish I was back on the floor with my kids, but it was too late. And then I looked at, because I don't make assumptions anymore, I don't teach you something I don't know, I don't come up in front of you without strong preparation and study and prayer. I come prepared. But then I looked on the internet, because Grace said to me that really checked her. And she says, my mind and our minds are everywhere. So then I looked up, the human mind thinks between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day. The human mind thinks between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day. The next day, 98% of what they were thinking the next day is the same as the previous day. So now we wonder why we're in the same situation that we were in yesterday, because 98% of our thoughts are the same as they were yesterday. And that's why God says, I need you to be a living sacrifice. Like I think Matt said, he said flat out, he says, or Zach or somebody said, or Nate, I think, said it when he presented the medallion. It's hard to think about yourself when you're serving others. And now it's saying this in Luke 16:12. If you're not trustworthy over someone else's property, who will give you your own? We treated everything I own today was previously somebody else's. And everything that we own, I treated it like it was my own. I quite frankly treated it better than it was my own. We treated this church like it was our own. We vacuumed the floors. We cleaned the trash. We did the landscaping. We did all that, and then God gave us a church. Before I owned the businesses and worked for the owner, I treated the business like I owned it. Not from a grandiose standpoint, but if I don't work hard, this thing's going to fail. Every day I gave it everything I got, and now I own the business. If you expect to own anything, you got to treat somebody else's ownership of whatever you're under like it's your own, and then God will give you yours. Only then you can go own something in your talent today. You can go own something, but you won't keep it. Because God is saying this, I'm going to give it to you, and when I give it to you, it's permanent. And that's why we stand here all these. But this is very important as we prepare to close in Deuteronomy. Remember, the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness for 40 years to humble you and to test you, to see what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. Any high-level leader doesn't really care so much about your gifts. At the end of the day, I need to know what's in Steve's heart. I appreciate that he's in charge of our facilities. I appreciate that he works for free and goes around and fixes everybody's houses. But all those gifts that he has in construction and maintenance, that's great. But if I don't know I'm connected at his heart, this won't last. Because Steve and I are going to go through some tough times than we have in 11 years. But we're still here, and we're friends, and we're brothers, and we're close. At the end of the day, you can tell anybody how great you are, whatever else. At the end of the day, whatever's in your heart, it will be tested. I said the same thing about Grace on Sunday. She's the best singer in the cities. She didn't have to come here. I don't love her for what she does. I love her for who she is. I will put somebody that can't sing on the stage before somebody that can if I'm not connected at their heart. Your heart will be revealed in time, and if you don't get your heart right, you won't last. You will not last. You will not be able to be corrected. When you hear the word no and not yet, you'll leave and you'll quit. And now it says this, that we need new operating systems. It's time to change how you operate. When I was a child, I spoke, understood, and thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. Sunday afternoon, when I had to correct somebody, they sent a long email. It just delayed them. It told me I can't trust them because they got too emotional after being corrected. So it just delayed their position that they could have had. Their emotions did. Not their skill sets, because they can do a lot more than they're doing, but they emotionally can't handle it. And that's what it's saying. If you're going to do better, you got to change the way you speak, you got to change the way you understand, and you got to change the way you think. And if you don't do those three things, systems under test, SUT, you will put away promotions. You will put away elevation. You won't go to the top, even if you don't desire to. And I don't even know what it is that I am today. But I know that I got to do the next right thing for the right reason to get the right results. And I've been doing that, not consistently, as you saw my testimony today with that guy driving. But that's what I strive to do. And God says he'll give you a new heart. So as we close in Ephesians, a new spirit, he'll remove your stony, stubborn heart and replace it with a responsive, tender heart. So the question I have for you in Ephesians 4 is this. That, however, is not the life you learned. You're learning a different way to live your life. When you heard about Christ and you were taught in him according to the truth that is in Jesus, you were taught with regard to your former way of life. That's what we're doing right now. And also to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by deceitful desires. To be made new in the attitude of your minds, to put on your new self, created to be God in the righteousness and holiness. Every day I got to put on my new self because I sleep with my old self. Steps 1 through 3, put on my new self. Admit I was powerless in my life to become managed. Cain believed a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the carrot. That is putting on my new self. Then I had to take off my old self. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. Admitted to God, myself, and another human being the exact nature of wrong. I'm taking off my old self. Became entirely ready to have God remove my defects of character. Humbly asked God to remove my shortcomings. Made a list of all people that had harmed. Became willing to make amends. Made direct amends whenever possible, except to do so would injure. I'm taking off my old self. Continued to take personal inventory when wrong. Promptly, I took off my old self. I didn't want to end up in jail today. Now I put my new self back on, but I sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God, praying only for the knowledge of his will and the power to carry it out. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I tried to carry the message and practice these principles. And I put it on, I took off the old, and I put on the new in step 12. I follow some of the highest level business people and spiritual people on the planet. 100% of them operate this way. 100% of them know that they cannot have anybody around them that is emotionally unstable. So if you're going to do anything else in your life to get what God has paid the price for you to have, learn how to get emotionally secure. Learn how to man up and woman up and trust those who don't follow somebody, they ain't got nothing. But if you want what they have, do what they do, and if they will share with you how they have obtained it and how they've kept it, because we can all get it and we can all lose it. Professionally, ministry, family, socially, friendships, son, daughter, parents, mothers, fathers, everyone can benefit from what was taught today. The question is, if you don't apply it, you'll never grow. God bless you.